I am Hannah, 28 years old, and on what should have been the happiest day of my life, my parents abandoned me. They flew to Hawaii while I prepared to walk down the aisle, leaving behind a box containing my wedding dress burned to ashes with a note that read, "Let us see how you get married." Little did they know who my in-laws truly were, or the wedding I would still have despite their cruelty. Before I share my story, let me know where you are watching from. Please like and subscribe if you have ever had to stand up against family who tried to dim your light. Growing up in a middle-class home in suburban Chicago, I always felt like I was walking on eggshells. My parents, Linda and Robert, were rigid perfectionists who micromanaged every aspect of my existence. From the clothes I wore to the friends I made, nothing escaped their scrutiny and rarely met their standards. Our modest three-bedroom house was always immaculately clean, as appearances mattered above all else to my parents. My father worked as a bank manager, and my mother was an administrative assistant at a local insurance company. They were not wealthy by any measure, but they desperately wanted to appear more successful than they were. This obsession with status, despite our financial limitations, created a tense household atmosphere. My younger sister Audrey was a different story. 4 years my junior, she somehow managed to become the golden child who could do no wrong. While I received criticism for bringing home an A-, Audrey would be praised for a B. The disparity in treatment was glaring, but questioning it only made things worse. "Why can you not be grateful for what we have given you?" my mother would ask whenever I expressed any disappointment or disagreement. "We have sacrificed everything for you girls." Those sacrifices were mentioned daily, wielded like weapons whenever I showed any sign of independence. My accomplishments were never celebrated without reminders of how much my parents had given up for my success. When I was accepted to Northwestern University with a partial scholarship instead of congratulations, my father remarked, "Well, if it had been a full ride, we would not have to struggle to pay the difference." I majored in marketing, a practical choice that my parents reluctantly approved after I abandoned my dream of studying art history to please them. Even then, they questioned if I was smart enough to succeed in business. Their doubt became a voice in my head that I carried through college, undermining my confidence even as I excelled academically. After graduation, I secured a position at a respected digital marketing firm in Chicago. The entry-level salary was modest, but offered growth potential. My parents were quick to compare it unfavorably to my cousin James, who had gone into investment banking. "He is already making 6 figures," my mother would comment during our Sunday phone calls. Dating was another battlefield. Every boyfriend was subjected to impossible standards and subtle humiliation during family dinners. My college boyfriend Thomas was dismissed as lacking ambition because he wanted to become a teacher. David, whom I dated for 2 years after college, was too focused on his career to be a good husband, despite my parents previously criticizing Thomas for the opposite reason. I could never win. By my mid-20s, I had learned to share less about my personal life. I began seeing a therapist, Dr. Sandra Patel, who helped me recognize the patterns of emotional manipulation in my family dynamics. "What you are describing sounds like conditional love," she told me during one session. "Your worth to them seems tied to how well you fulfill their expectations, not who you actually are." This revelation was both painful and liberating. I started building boundaries, moving to an apartment further from my parents, and limiting our interactions to twice-monthly dinners. I cultivated friendships with supportive people like my college roommate Jess and my coworker Martin, who appreciated me for who I was, not what I achieved. Still, years of conditioning made it difficult to completely break free from seeking my parents' approval. Every achievement was still mentally measured against their potential reaction. Every setback came with the anticipated disappointment in their eyes. I was 27 years old, but still fighting to discover who I was outside of their expectations. Little did I know that meeting Alex would be the catalyst that would finally force me to choose between the family I was born into and the life I deserved. I met Alex Fisher at a fundraising gala for Chicago Children's Hospital in the spring of 2 years ago. My company had donated marketing services to the event, and I was there representing our team. Romance was the last thing on my mind that evening as I networked with potential clients, glass of champagne in hand. "You look as bored as I feel," a voice said beside me as I studied the silent auction items to avoid another conversation about quarterly marketing budgets. I turned to find a tall man with kind brown eyes and an easy smile that made me instinctively smile back. "Is it that obvious?" I asked, laughing. "Only to another person hiding by the least popular auction table," he replied, gesturing to the handmade pottery we were pretending to examine. "I am Alex, by the way." "Hannah," I said, shaking his offered hand. We spent the rest of the evening talking about everything except business. Alex was refreshingly genuine in a room full of people trying to impress each other. He listened attentively when I spoke, asked thoughtful questions, and made me laugh more than I had in months. When he asked for my number at the end of the night, giving it to him felt like the most natural thing in the world. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant in Lincoln Park. Alex arrived in a modest sedan, wearing jeans and a button-down shirt. Nothing about him suggested wealth or pretension. He told me he worked for his family business, but did not elaborate, and I did not press. After years of my parents judging people by their status, I found his humility attractive. Over the next several months, our relationship deepened. Alex was patient and supportive, never pushing when I was reluctant to discuss my family. When I finally shared some of my childhood experiences, his response was validating rather than pitying. "They missed out on knowing the amazing woman you are," he said, holding my hand across the table. "That is their loss." 6 months into our relationship, I still had not introduced Alex to my parents. The thought of subjecting him to their judgment terrified me. He never pressured me, understanding my hesitation without making me feel guilty about it. It was during a weekend trip to Michigan that I learned more about Alex's background. We were walking along the lake shore when he casually mentioned that his family owned Fisher and Sons, a name I vaguely recognized as an upscale jewelry company. "Wait," I said, stopping in my tracks. "Fisher and Sons, the goldsmiths, the ones with stores in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles." Alex looked slightly uncomfortable. "Yes, that is them. My great-grandfather started the company in 1920. My father runs it now, and I work in design and sourcing." I do not usually lead with that information. "Why not?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Because people treat you differently when they think you have money," he said simply. "They either want something from you or assume you are spoiled and entitled. I would rather be known for who I am than what my family owns." His honesty touched me deeply. Here was someone who could have used his family name to impress, but instead chose to live modestly and be judged on his own merits. It made me love him even more. Eventually, I could no longer avoid introducing Alex to my parents. We had been dating for almost a year, and he had invited me to meet his family, who were warm and welcoming. I reluctantly arranged a dinner at my parents' house, preparing Alex as best I could for their likely behavior. The evening was as uncomfortable as I had feared. My parents were coldly polite, interrogating Alex about his job and future plans with thinly veiled skepticism. When he mentioned working for his family's jewelry business, my father assumed he was a store clerk and made a dismissive remark about retail jobs. Alex did not correct him, simply saying he enjoyed the craftsmanship aspect of the industry. On the drive home, I apologized repeatedly. I am so sorry about my parents. They were horrible. Alex reached over and squeezed my hand. Hannah, you have nothing to apologize for. You are not responsible for their behavior. Besides, their opinion of me does not change how I feel about you. 18 months into our relationship, during a private dinner at the Art Institute's rooftop restaurant, Alex got down on one knee and proposed with a stunning ring he had designed himself. It featured an emerald-cut diamond in a platinum setting with tiny sapphires, my birthstone, embedded in the band. Hannah, you have shown me what it means to be brave and true to yourself, despite every obstacle. I want to spend my life supporting your dreams the way you have supported mine. Will you marry me? Through happy tears, I said yes, without hesitation. The moment was perfect, made even more special by the thought and care he had put into creating a ring that reflected my personality. When I called my parents the next day to share the news, their response was lukewarm at best. Well, I suppose congratulations are in order, my mother said without enthusiasm. Though you have only known him for a year and a half, that seems rather rushed. My father was more direct. I hope he has better career prospects than retail if he plans to support a family. Have you discussed finances, prenuptial agreements? Their reaction hurt, but did not surprise me. I had learned to expect disappointment, but this time I refused to let them diminish my happiness. Alex and I were building something beautiful together, with or without their blessing. The months following our engagement should have been filled with joy, but instead became an exercise in managing family drama. Alex and I envisioned an elegant but intimate wedding with about 100 guests at the Chicago Botanic Garden. We wanted something meaningful that reflected our personalities rather than an extravagant display. When Alex's parents, Catherine and James Fisher, offered to pay for the wedding as a gift, I was touched by their generosity. You are family now, Catherine told me warmly. Let us do this for you both. My parents, however, saw their offer as an affront. We can contribute to our own daughter's wedding, my father insisted, during an uncomfortable dinner despite their more limited financial means. Pride was getting in the way of practicality. Dad, the Fishers want to do this for us, not because they think you cannot afford it, I explained, trying to smooth things over. So now you are embarrassed by us? My mother interjected. Ashamed of where you come from. No matter how carefully I navigated these conversations, my parents found ways to feel slighted. When we selected the venue, they complained it was unnecessarily fancy. When we chose the menu, they questioned why we needed such exotic food when a normal dinner would suffice. Every decision became a battleground. I tried including my mother in dress shopping, hoping it might be a bonding experience. We visited an upscale bridal boutique, where I fell in love with a classic A-line gown, with delicate beadwork. $10,000 for a dress you will wear once, my mother exclaimed loudly enough for other shoppers to hear. That is obscene, Hannah. I raised you better than this. The dress was actually being offered at a discount as a previous season's design, and Catherine had privately told me not to worry about the cost. Still, my mother's reaction left me in tears in the boutique fitting room. Maybe we should go somewhere more affordable, I suggested, trying to salvage the day. What is the point, she replied. You clearly prefer Catherine's opinion to mine anyway. By contrast, shopping with Catherine the following weekend was a joyful experience. She was supportive without being pushy, honest without being cruel. When I finally said yes to the dress I loved, she hugged me and said, You look absolutely beautiful, Hannah. Alex will not be able to take his eyes off you. As the wedding date approached, the contrast between my parents and the Fishers became increasingly stark. My future in-laws included us in family dinners, asked about our preferences, and respected our decisions. They were wealthy but unpretentious, successful but humble. The tension culminated at the rehearsal dinner hosted by the Fishers at an upscale restaurant overlooking Lake Michigan. They had arranged a private room with personalized menus and thoughtful touches like framed photos of Alex and me throughout our relationship. During his toast, Alex's father spoke warmly about welcoming me to their family and the joy of seeing his son so happy. When it was my father's turn to speak, he delivered a speech laced with backhanded compliments. "Hannah has always been a girl with big dreams," he said, glass in hand. "Sometimes too big for her own good. But I guess this time her ambitions have paid off." He looked pointedly at Alex. She certainly landed on her feet. The implication that I had pursued Alex for his family's money hung in the air. I felt my face burn with humiliation as an uncomfortable silence followed. Alex squeezed my hand under the table, his quiet support the only thing keeping me from falling apart. Later that night, I confronted my parents in their hotel room. "How could you say that? Do you really think I am with Alex for his money? I did not even know about his family business when we met." "We are just concerned about you," my mother replied defensively. "You have always been impulsive. We do not want you getting swept away by all this," she gestured vaguely, presumably referring to the Fishers' wealth. "I am 28 years old, not a child. I am marrying Alex because I love him. He respects me and supports me, which is more than I can say for you two lately." "Watch your tone," my father warned. "We are still your parents." "Then act like it," I responded, my voice breaking. "Tomorrow is supposed to be the happiest day of my life. All I want is for you to be happy for me. Is that really too much to ask?" They did not answer directly, but my mother hugged me stiffly before I left. "Get some sleep," she said. "Everything will look better in the morning." I returned to my hotel room emotionally exhausted, but hopeful that perhaps we had cleared the air. Maybe tomorrow would be different. Maybe they would finally put aside their resentments and simply be present for one of the most important days of my life. I had no idea that by morning they would be on their way to Hawaii, leaving destruction in their wake. I woke up early on my wedding day, a mixture of excitement and nervous energy making sleep impossible. The suite I had booked at the Four Seasons overlooked Lake Michigan, and the June sunrise cast a golden glow across the water that seemed like a good omen. Today I would marry the man I loved, surrounded by friends and family. Despite the tensions with my parents, I was determined to focus on the joy of the occasion. My phone rang just as I was pouring my first cup of coffee. Seeing my sister's name on the screen, I answered cheerfully. "Good morning. Are you on your way over? The hairstylist will be here in an hour." There was a pause before Audrey spoke, her voice unusually hesitant. "Hannah, I do not know how to tell you this, but Mom and Dad are gone." "What do you mean, gone?" I asked, not comprehending. "Their hotel is just down the street. Are they getting breakfast or something?" "No, Hannah. They left. They flew to Hawaii this morning. Dad had apparently booked the trip weeks ago. They asked me to tell you they will not be at the wedding." The coffee cup slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. "That is not possible. My wedding is today. Today. Why would they do this?" Audrey's voice was small. "Mom said you made your choice by siding with his family over ours. Dad said you needed to learn a lesson about loyalty." She paused. "There is something else. They left a package at your apartment. The building manager called me because they could not reach you. He said Dad was insistent that you get it this morning." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. My parents had abandoned me on my wedding day, not because of an emergency or illness, but deliberately to punish me for imagined disloyalty. I struggled to breathe, as the reality sank in. By the time my bridesmaids arrived, I was sitting on the bathroom floor in tears. My best friend Jess took charge, sending someone to my apartment to retrieve the mysterious package while the others tried to comfort me. "They have always been difficult," I sobbed. "But I never thought they would do something like this. How could they just leave? What am I going to tell everyone? Who will walk me down the aisle?" Catherine arrived shortly after, immediately enveloping me in a maternal hug that made me cry harder. "Oh, Hannah, I am so sorry," she said, holding me tight. "But listen to me. Alex loves you. We love you. And this wedding is going to happen with or without your parents." The package from my apartment arrived as the makeup artist was trying to salvage my tear-swollen eyes. It was a large box wrapped in plain brown paper with my name written in my father's handwriting. "Do you want me to open it?" Jess offered, clearly concerned about what might be inside. "No, I need to see it," I insisted, though dread filled my stomach. Nothing could have prepared me for what the box contained. Inside was my wedding dress, the one I had purchased with Catherine, now reduced to a partially burned ruin. The delicate beadwork was melted, the silk charred around the edges. Pinned to what remained of the bodice was a handwritten note. "Let us see how you get married now. Maybe next time you will remember where your loyalties should lie." A collective gasp filled the room. Catherine's hand flew to her mouth in horror. Jess swore under her breath. The makeup artist froze brush in midair. "They burned my wedding dress," I whispered, shock, giving way to a bone-deep pain. "They actually destroyed my dress to stop me from getting married." The cruelty of the act was breathtaking. This was not just disapproval or absence. This was an active attempt to sabotage one of the most important days of my life. Something inside me shifted in that moment, a fundamental realignment of how I saw my parents and my relationship with them. As if sensing my thoughts, Catherine knelt beside me. "Hannah, listen to me. This is horrible and inexcusable, but it will not stop today from happening. I have an idea." She made a quick call to her friend Diane, who owned a high-end boutique in downtown Chicago. Within an hour, a selection of designer wedding gowns in my size was delivered to the hotel suite. Among them was a stunning Vera Wang creation that fit as if it had been made for me, requiring only minor alterations that the boutique's seamstress performed on site. While I was being fitted, Alex called, having heard about my parents from his best man who had spoken to Jess. "Hannah, I am so sorry," he said, his voice tight with anger on my behalf. "Whatever you want to do today, I support you. If you want to postpone, we can. If you want to elope instead, I am ready. This is your call." His understanding brought fresh tears to my eyes, but also strengthened my resolve. "I want to marry you today," I told him. "I am not letting them ruin this for us. They have taken enough." By early afternoon, a transformation had occurred. The new dress fit perfectly. My makeup had been reapplied to cover all traces of tears. My bridesmaids surrounded me with love and encouragement. But as we prepared to leave for the Botanic Garden, a new worry surfaced. "Who will walk me down the aisle?" I asked, the question catching in my throat. It was Catherine who provided the answer. "James would be honored if you would allow him, but only if that feels right to you, Hannah." The gesture moved me deeply. Alex's father had shown me more respect and kindness in 2 years than my own had in 28. "I would be grateful," I replied. As we arrived at the venue, the wedding coordinator approached with concern. "I have been trying to reach your parents. They were supposed to be part of the processional." "There has been a change of plans," I said, simply not willing to explain the painful truth to everyone. "James Fisher will be walking me down the aisle." Despite the morning's trauma, as the music began, and I stood at the entrance to the garden with James at my side, a surprising calm settled over me. The path ahead was lined with flowers and smiling faces. At the end stood Alex, his eyes filled with love as he watched me approach. "Ready?" James asked gently. I took a deep breath and nodded. "Yes, I am ready." Despite the morning's heartbreak, my wedding was everything I could have hoped for. The Chicago Botanic Garden was in full summer bloom, creating a natural cathedral of flowers and greenery. As the string quartet played Pachelbel's Canon, I walked down the aisle on James's arm, my eyes fixed on Alex waiting for me beneath an arch of white roses and ivy. The absence of my parents created a hollow space in my heart, but it was quickly filled by the genuine warmth from everyone present. Friends and family from both sides stood as I passed their faces, reflecting happiness for us rather than pity for my situation. I had chosen not to share the full truth of my parents' actions, with most guests simply saying there had been a family emergency. When James placed my hand in Alex's, he added an unscripted moment, kissing my cheek and whispering, "We are so proud to have you join our family." The simple sincerity of his words healed something broken inside me. The ceremony itself was brief but meaningful. We had written our own vows, and Alex's voice was steady as he promised to stand by me through all of life's challenges. "You have shown me what true strength looks like," he said, his eyes never leaving mine. "I promise to be your partner, your champion, and your safe harbor today and always." When it was my turn, my voice wavered only slightly. "Alex, you have taught me that love should not have conditions or expectations attached. You accept me completely as I am. I promise to cherish that gift and return it to you every day of our lives together." As we exchanged rings and were pronounced husband and wife, a sense of peace washed over me. This moment was ours, and nothing could diminish it, not even my parents' cruel attempt to derail our day. The reception was held in the garden's glass, enclosed pavilion transformed with twinkling lights and centerpieces of garden roses and wildflowers. During the cocktail hour, countless guests approached to congratulate us, unaware of the morning's drama or my change of dress. "You look absolutely stunning," my former college roommate Jess said as she hugged me. "That dress is even more beautiful than the one you showed me before." I smiled, not correcting her assumption. "Thank you. It feels perfect for today." The traditional father-daughter dance was reimagined as a special dance with James, who had requested the band play Frank Sinatra's "The Way You Look Tonight." As we moved across the floor, he spoke quietly. "Catherine and I want you to know that we consider you our daughter now, Hannah. Not just legally, but in our hearts." Later during the toasts, Catherine stood and raised her glass. When Alex brought Hannah home to meet us, we knew immediately that he had found his perfect match. Her kindness, intelligence, and strength of character shone through from the first moment. "Today we do not just gain a daughter-in-law, we gain a daughter." Her words brought fresh tears to my eyes, but this time they were tears of gratitude rather than pain. The celebration continued late into the night, with dancing, laughter, and genuine joy. If anyone noticed my parents' absence, they were tactful enough not to mention it. By the end of the evening, surrounded by people who truly cared for us, I realized that family could be chosen as well as born. 2 days later, Alex and I departed for our honeymoon, a 3-week journey through Italy that his parents had arranged as a wedding gift. As we explored the ancient streets of Rome, the canals of Venice, and the rolling hills of Tuscany, the pain of my parents' betrayal began to recede, though it never disappeared completely. It was during a quiet evening at our hotel in Florence that I decided to post a selection of wedding photos on social media. Until then, I had been hesitant, not wanting to deal with questions about my parents' absence. But looking at the joyful images of our perfect day, I felt a surge of defiance. Why should I hide my happiness to protect those who had tried to destroy it? I selected a dozen photos that captured the beauty and emotion of the day, including several with Alex's family. One particular image showed us with Catherine and James all dressed in our finery, the Fisher family's multi-generation goldsmith heritage, subtly evident in the exquisite jewelry. Catherine wore pieces I now knew were company heirlooms, worth millions. Within hours, the post received hundreds of likes and comments from friends and acquaintances expressing their congratulations. But it was a comment from the designer of my replacement dress that caused the post to gain unexpected attention. "Absolutely honored that my design was chosen for your special day," Diane wrote, tagging her boutique's account. "Hannah makes a breathtaking bride in our couture collection." The high-profile tag led to the post being shared in fashion circles, bringing it to a much wider audience than I had anticipated. The combination of the beautiful setting, the designer dress, and the presence of the Fisher family known in certain circles for their exclusive jewelry empire created a perfect storm of social media interest. As Alex and I traveled through Tuscany largely disconnected from our phones, we remained unaware that our wedding had become something of a talking point. It was only when we arrived in Rome for the final leg of our journey that I checked my messages and discovered dozens of notifications, including several missed calls from a number I recognized all too well. My parents had seen the wedding photos, and they were not happy. Our return flight from Rome landed in Chicago on a sweltering July afternoon. As soon as I turned my phone off airplane mode, it began buzzing continuously with notifications. 99 missed calls. 68 text messages, dozens of voicemails. The majority were from my parents. "This cannot be good," I murmured to Alex as we waited for our luggage. He squeezed my hand. "Whatever it is, we will handle it together. Do you want to listen to any of the messages now?" I shook my head. "Not here. Let us get home first." Our apartment felt blissfully peaceful after the long journey. We unpacked the essentials and ordered takeout before I finally worked up the courage to check the first voicemail from my mother. Her voice was tight, with barely controlled fury. "Hannah, call us back immediately. We need to discuss these photos you have posted. How dare you humiliate us this way? Call us back." Each subsequent message grew more demanding and accusatory. By the 20th voicemail, my mother was practically shouting, "You deliberately hid who the Fishers really are. Do you know how this makes us look? Everyone can see that you married into money and did not even have the decency to tell your own parents we would never have left if we had known." I felt sick to my stomach. Of course. Now that they had seen the Fisher family's wealth displayed in my wedding photos, my parents suddenly regretted their actions, not because they were wrong, but because they had miscalculated what they could gain from the connection. "They think I married Alex for his family's money," I said to Alex, who had been listening with growing anger beside me. "And they are mad because they missed the opportunity to benefit from it themselves." "That is unbelievable," he replied, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "After what they did to your dress, after abandoning you on our wedding day, they have the audacity to be angry at you." I scrolled through the text messages, each one more demanding than the last. The final one, sent just hours before our landing, read, "We are coming to your apartment tomorrow at 6. Be there. We need to discuss fixing this situation." "Fixing this situation," I repeated incredulously. "They think there is a way to fix what they did." That night, I barely slept, anxiety coursing through me at the thought of facing my parents. Alex suggested we simply refuse to see them, but I knew that would only delay the inevitable confrontation. Better to face it head-on and then move forward with our lives. The next evening, at precisely 6, our doorbell rang. Alex squeezed my hand one last time before I opened the door to find my parents standing there, looking remarkably unrepentant given the circumstances. Finally, my mother said, pushing past me into the apartment, "We have been trying to reach you for days." My father followed his eyes sweeping critically over our home. "So, this is where you live. Surprisingly modest, considering." I closed the door, steeling myself. "Considering what, Dad?" "Considering you married into the Fisher family," he replied bluntly. "Why did you hide who they really are from us? Did you think we would not find out?" "I did not hide anything," I said, keeping my voice level with effort. "You never asked, and it was not relevant. Alex does not define himself by his family's business, and neither do I." "Not relevant." My mother's voice rose in disbelief. "You married into one of the wealthiest families in Chicago, and you did not think that was worth mentioning to your own parents." Alex stepped forward. "With all due respect, Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, I think you have forfeited any right to explanations after your actions on our wedding day." My father's face darkened. "This does not concern you, young man. This is between us and our daughter." "Actually, it very much concerns me," Alex replied firmly. "You abandoned my wife on our wedding day and destroyed her wedding dress out of spite. Now you are in our home making accusations because you discovered my family has money. Money that, for the record, has nothing to do with why Hannah and I fell in love." My mother waved her hand dismissively. "We made a mistake, certainly. We were upset and acted impulsively. But families forgive each other. Now we need to move forward, make proper introductions to the Fishers. We should host a reception for you, both invite our friends and family who missed the wedding." The audacity left me speechless for a moment. They were not here to apologize, but to strategize how to benefit from my marriage. "Let me make sure I understand," I said slowly. "You left me on my wedding day with a vicious note and my destroyed dress. You said nothing for weeks. Then you saw photos showing the Fishers are wealthy, and suddenly you want to play happy family and host a reception as if nothing happened." "Do not be dramatic, Hannah," my father scoffed. "Everyone makes mistakes. We were hurt that you seemed to prefer his family to your own, but now we understand the situation better." "The situation," I repeated. "You mean now that you know Alex's family has money you want to be part of our lives again. That is not how this works. You cannot treat people horribly and then expect forgiveness when you realize there might be some benefit to you." "We are your parents," my mother insisted. "Family is forever. The Fishers need to meet your real family, not just get your version of events." My version of events, I felt my control slipping. "There is no version. There are facts. You abandoned me. You destroyed my wedding dress. You left a note saying, and I quote, 'Let us see how you get married now.' Those are not interpretations. They are things you actually did." "We had no idea the Fishers would simply buy you another dress," my father countered. "If we had known who they were." "If you had known they were wealthy, you would have behaved differently," I finished for him. "That just makes it worse, not better. It means your love and support are conditional not just on me meeting your expectations, but on what you can gain from the relationship." My mother's expression hardened. "I do not like your tone, Hannah. After everything we have done for you." "What exactly have you done for me?" I interrupted, years of pent-up hurt finally breaking free. "Criticized me, compared me unfavorably to others, made me feel like I was never good enough, abandoned me on my wedding day. Tell me, what should I be grateful for?" A heavy silence filled the room. My parents exchanged glances, clearly unprepared for this version of me, one who would not back down or accept their manipulation. "We want to meet with the Fishers," my father finally said, changing tactics. "Surely that is not too much to ask. We should all get to know each other now that we are connected by marriage." Alex, who had been quietly supportive beside me, spoke up. "My parents are aware of what you did to Hannah. They saw the dress. They saw her heartbreak. I do not think they would be interested in meeting you under these circumstances." "So you have poisoned them against us," my mother accused. "Told only your side of the story." "There is no side to this story," I said firmly, "only the truth. And the truth is that you have shown me exactly who you are and what I mean to you. I will not subject the Fishers, who have shown me nothing but kindness and acceptance, to your brand of toxic family dynamics." My father's face flushed with anger. "So this is how it is going to be. You choose them over your own blood." "I am choosing myself," I replied. "For perhaps the first time in my life, I am choosing not to accept treatment that hurts me from anyone, even my parents. Especially my parents, who should love me unconditionally, but have only ever loved the version of me that serves their needs." "Fine," my mother snapped, gathering her purse. "When you come to your senses and realize what you are throwing away, do not expect us to welcome you back with open arms. There are consequences for this kind of disrespect, Hannah." "I am well aware of consequences," I said quietly. "I have been living with the consequences of your conditional love my entire life. It stops now." As they moved toward the door, my father turned back. "This is not over. Your sister agrees with us, by the way. She thinks you have been utterly selfish throughout this entire situation. It was a final attempt to hurt me, to make me feel isolated. But I knew better." Audrey had texted me privately after seeing the wedding photos, apologizing for not standing up to our parents more forcefully and congratulating me on my marriage. "Goodbye, Dad," I said, holding the door open. "Mom, I hope someday you can reflect on your actions and understand why this is happening. Until then, I need space from this relationship." After they left, I collapsed onto the couch, emotionally drained, but also strangely peaceful. Alex sat beside me, pulling me into his embrace. "I am so proud of you," he whispered against my hair. "That could not have been easy." "It was actually easier than I expected," I admitted. "Once I stopped seeking their approval and started standing up for what I deserve, the words just came." Over the next few weeks, the story of my parents' actions somehow leaked into our extended family and social circle, likely through my mother's distorted version of events. But unexpectedly, this backfired on them. Several relatives reached out to express their support for me, some sharing their own stories of my parents' manipulative behavior over the years. Most surprisingly, Audrey called me one evening, her voice thick with emotion. "I saw the burned dress, Hannah. Mom kept it, can you believe that? Like some kind of trophy. I found it in their closet when I was helping them unpack from Hawaii." That is when I knew everything they told me about what happened was a lie. Her support meant more than she could know. For years, our parents had used her as a wedge between us, playing favorites to keep us from forming a united front. Now, seeing the truth for herself, she was finally breaking free from their manipulation as well. As summer turned to fall, my parents made several more attempts to contact us, each time with a different approach. Sometimes they were angry and demanding, other times wounded and pleading. Occasionally, they would attempt to use other family members as intermediaries. But Alex and I remained firm in our boundaries, insisting that any relationship moving forward would need to begin with a genuine acknowledgement of their actions and a commitment to change. That acknowledgement never came. The months following our confrontation with my parents were a time of profound healing and growth. With Alex's support and regular sessions with Dr. Patel, I began to process the deep wounds of my childhood and the fresh trauma of the wedding day betrayal. What your parents did was a form of emotional abuse, Dr. Patel explained during one session. The burned dress was a symbolic act of violence against your independence and happiness. It is natural to feel grief, not just for what happened, but for the parents you deserved but never had. That framing helped me understand the complex emotions I was experiencing. Sadness and anger tangled with unexpected relief. For the first time in my life, I was free from the constant pressure to earn my parents' approval, a battle I now recognized was designed for me to lose. Our first holiday season as a married couple brought new challenges. Thanksgiving at the Fishers' home was warm and joyful, but I could not help feeling the absence of my own family, imperfect as they were. Christmas brought a card from my parents, containing no apology, but a terse note, suggesting we put the past behind us for the holidays. I returned it, unopened. Family estrangement is more common than people realize. Catherine told me gently when she noticed my melancholy mood during their Christmas gathering. James did not speak to his father for the last 15 years of the man's life. It was painful but necessary for his own well-being. Sometimes the healthiest thing we can do is create distance from those who hurt us, even when they are family, perhaps, especially then. Her understanding was a balm to my spirit. The Fishers never pressed me to reconcile with my parents for the sake of appearances or tradition. They respected my decision and continued to welcome me fully into their family without making me feel like I owed them anything in return. In January, I received an unexpected email from my sister. Audrey had moved out of our parents' home and taken an apartment with a friend, her first real step toward independence at 24. They have been unbearable since everything happened, she wrote. Dad lost a promotion at work and blames it on the distraction of your wedding drama. Mom keeps telling everyone who will listen that you married Alex for his money and turned him against the family. I finally told them they were being ridiculous and that they created this situation themselves. They did not speak to me for 3 days. I think I am beginning to understand what you have been dealing with all these years. We began meeting for coffee every few weeks, rebuilding our relationship without our parents' interference. It was healing to connect with the one person who truly understood the dynamics of our upbringing, even if she had experienced it differently as the favored child. Spring brought a new development that tested my emotional resilience in unexpected ways. I missed my period, and a home test confirmed what I had begun to suspect. I was pregnant. The joy Alex and I felt was complicated by a new wave of anxiety. Would I know how to be a good parent without a positive example to follow? Would my own childhood wounds affect my ability to nurture a child, and buried beneath those concerns? A question I was almost afraid to acknowledge, even to myself. Should my parents be allowed to know their grandchild? Having a child does not obligate you to reconnect with your parents, Dr. Patel assured me when I voiced these concerns. Many people worry they will repeat the patterns of their own upbringing, but awareness is the first step to breaking those cycles. You recognize what was harmful in your parents' approach, which means you can consciously choose a different path. As my pregnancy progressed, Catherine became an unexpected source of wisdom and support. Unlike my own mother, who had always been critical and withholding, she shared her experiences openly, including her mistakes and uncertainties. No parent is perfect, Hannah, she told me one afternoon. As we prepared the nursery in our new house, a spacious 3-bedroom in Lincoln Park that Alex and I had purchased with his family's help. The difference is whether you can admit your mistakes and repair the relationship when you fall short. Your parents never learned that skill, but you have. In my 7th month, I wrote a letter to my unborn daughter, pouring out my promises and hopes for her future. I would love her unconditionally. I would respect her as an individual. I would support her dreams even when they differed from my expectations. I would never use my love as a weapon or a bargaining chip. I sealed the letter to give to her someday, a contract with myself as much as a message to her. 2 weeks before my due date, an envelope arrived with my parents' return address. Inside was a card congratulating us on the baby information they had presumably learned through family channels. There was no apology for the past, only a statement that they expected to be involved in their grandchild's life. After careful consideration and many discussions with Alex, I wrote back a brief but firm response. I am not willing to expose my child to the same conditional love and manipulation I experienced growing up. When you are ready to take responsibility for your actions and commit to respectful boundaries, we can discuss supervised visits. Until then, this door remains closed. It was one of the hardest letters I had ever written, but also one of the most necessary. Becoming a parent had strengthened my resolve to break the cycle of toxic family dynamics, even if that meant maintaining distance from my own parents. Lily Catherine Fisher was born on a brilliant October morning, healthy and perfect, with Alex's brown eyes and my stubborn chin. Holding her in my arms, I felt a love so pure and unconditional, it brought tears to my eyes. This was what family should feel like, not an endless quest for approval, but a safe harbor of acceptance and support. The journey from the burned wedding dress to this moment had been painful but transformative. I had lost the family I was born into, but gained a family of choice that showed me what love without strings attached truly meant. I had found my voice and my boundaries. I had learned that sometimes the healthiest response to toxic relationships is to walk away even when cultural expectations pressure us to maintain ties at all costs. Most importantly, I had discovered that family is not defined by blood, but by how we treat each other, by the safety and acceptance we create together. The Fisher family had welcomed me without reservation, but the true gift was finding the strength to demand better treatment and the courage to walk away when it was not given. As I watch my daughter grow, I am grateful for the painful lessons that brought me to this place of peace. The legacy I pass to her will not be one of criticism and conditional love, but of self-respect and the courage to choose relationships that honor her worth. If you have ever had to distance yourself from toxic family members, know that you are not alone. Your worth is not determined by those who cannot see it. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do for ourselves is to walk away from those who cannot love us as we deserve to be loved. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please like and subscribe to support this channel. Share your own experiences in the comments below. Have you ever had to create boundaries with family members? What helped you through that difficult process? Your stories matter, and they might just help someone else feel less alone in their own journey.